Hey honeys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kylie, and today's video I want to talk about Ashton and I's infertility journey. If you've watched my introduction video, you do know that it has been a very long journey, and I just wanted to talk about ours to get that out there, and somebody out there may very much relate. So starting off, again, Ashton and I had a unplanned pregnancy a little over 8 years ago. I had just graduated high school and I was getting ready to start nursing school. I was actually working at a hospital as a CNA. It was my first week of orientation and I just felt like extremely tired. And at that point, I honestly wasn't tracking my cycles. I don't even remember how I knew when my period was going to come around. That part of my mind is like blank. So we happened to take a pregnancy test because it could definitely have been a thing, and it did come out positive. So we were both very excited. Obviously that threw us for a loop, but we were very excited. We told like our best friends, but that was it. We kept it on the low. I started nursing school shortly thereafter, and within the first couple days of nursing school, I started spotting, which from there we went to the ER and learned that we were miscarrying. At that point, I was 8 weeks along. So that was very tough. Again, I was just in the first few days of nursing school. I was at a private school. You can't miss classes. I'm sure they would have made an exception for me, but I kept the whole thing so secretive that I just, I went home and I got a couple hours of sleep, got back up, went to school, and went back to my dorm that afternoon for a nap and woke up and I was just gushing blood. So at that time, I'd passed the baby, and again, the next day I went on as if nothing had happened. Looking back, I don't know how I did that. I truly don't know how I did that. It was just a point in my life where I was almost like fight or flight. Like I have to go to school, I have to get this done. I kept my emotions very much to myself. Between Ashton and I, obviously it was extremely hard. We leaned on each other for that, and our best friends that we had told, but other than that, we acted as if it almost didn't happen. So fast forward to us getting engaged. Again, I did start tracking my ovulation. I just bought the really cheap Amazon packs where you can get like 50 ovulation tests and 20 pregnancy tests on Amazon for like $10-15, which if anybody out there is going to Walmart and buying those first response or Clear Blues, cut that. That gets extremely expensive. Go to Amazon, buy those cheap little sticks. That will save you so much money. So, I did that. We were tracking that every month. I was ovulating actively on, day 13 or 14 every single month. My period was coming every 28, 29 days religiously. So, we were kind of like, what the heck? Everything seems as it should be. So we did that for a year and just both agreed that we wanted to get married before going to see a fertility specialist to see what is truly going on. So we get married in July 2nd of 2016. We got married and decided from there, again, let's go get help. So November, of that year, I went to see my OB, regular pap, told her what was going on. It hasn't happened. And she's like, well, you guys are both healthy. Ashton and I both worked out. Ashton still does very religiously. We were both extremely healthy. We, ate good meals. We're not overweight. So we're young. There was nothing pointing to us saying these people are going to have a hard time. But, my OB was great. My GYN, she sent a referral, or actually, I'm sorry, she ordered a semen analysis for Ashton and basically sent a referral to a fertility doctor. So we ended up seeing that fertility doctor. We did all the testing. Everything seemed completely normal. We jumped right into doing an IUI, which is an insemination basically. So Ashton will give a semen sample, and then what they'll do is they'll spin that down, they'll collect the good sperm or semen out of that, the good swimmers basically, and they will take a small pipette and basically squeeze that directly right into my uterus. So we did 3 rounds of that before we decided to move on. Those 3 rounds did not work. It was heartbreaking, but it was just one of those things that you can't get too fired up or too excited about. We had already struggled mentally with it not happening on our own. So again, trying the IUI, did I cry when my period came? Absolutely. Did I get frustrated? Absolutely. We were throwing money away essentially, but not really. I mean, it was for a good cause, but it just didn't get us anywhere. So we decided to move on to the more expensive route of IVF. For those of you that don't know, in vitro fertilization. That is where they give me all sorts of meds. They really stimulate my body to produce extra eggs. So the normal person with ovulation monthly will drop 1 to 2 eggs, 2 if you're lucky. But all these stimulating medications caused me to produce 15 eggs. So, I was doing shots every day, and I was extremely bloated, and some of the meds make you nauseous, but again, I'm doing what I have to do to get my baby. So we did that. We would go in and Ashton would give his sperm sample, and then they would extract eggs from my body. So they would put me under a little bit of anesthesia and go in with like this needle sucker thing and literally like suck the little eggs out. And again, I got 15 eggs that first time. Everything looked great. So they would fertilize, directly take the egg and directly put the sperm into the egg and let it sit in a petri dish for a few days and see which ones turned into embryos. So 5 days later, with some phone calls in between, giving me update of how many had fertilized, how many had made it. We get there on day 5 to move that embryo, place that embryo in my uterus. And we get there and we find out that we only have 2 out of the 15, and they're just decent. They're not actually that good. So we were very sad about that, spending that much money, nearly, 20 grand to, hopefully get a baby, hopefully put some embryos in the freezer for a later time to have more kids. We didn't have that option. So we were excited. Obviously, we did have 2 little embryos that were decent, but we were also sad because 1, they weren't great, and 2, we had nothing to freeze for a later time. So anyway, we transferred the 2 embryos. 1 did not take, and I did end up getting pregnant with 1 baby that first round. Unfortunately, we did lose that baby at 8 weeks again. So that is now 2 losses at 8 weeks. Extremely hard. We were like, how are we gonna move on from this? I was in a really, really bad spot mentally. The money aspect of it, if IVF failed us, there are no other options really. And then, just the fact of losing a baby, I mean, it was miserable. It was so hard. So moving on from there, that was October. And then that January, we decided to do another IUI just to see if, maybe we would get lucky. Maybe for whatever reason, it's the cheaper route to go. So we tried another IUI, and basically between that time and the full next year. I believe, again, if I remember correctly, we have done so many. I believe at that time we had done 2 more IUIs. We did one in January, and then we did one in June. I did have a chemical pregnancy, which is a pregnancy that you lose right away. Basically, you see those pink lines, and then it's like the next second you're bleeding. So we did have that loss. We then did IVF number 2. Again, forked out more money and said, this is it. Same thing happened. I got exactly 15 eggs, and we had one that was decent and 2 that were extremely subpar. So I guess you could say we had 3, and those 3 we did transfer, but we were not confident by any means. The doctors were not confident. The embryologist was not confident. You know, people could think, wow, you had 3 though. You had 3 possibilities. And that's how I did look at it. You know, I had to be positive with the whole situation. But they were just like, Kylie, you know, guys, they're not good. They don't look good. So we transferred all 3 and said, what the heck, if we end up with triplets, it'll be tough, but I mean, very much worth it. You know, we end up to a 2 or 1, you know, whatever. We want our baby. We transferred 3. 5 days later, 6 days later, negative pregnancy test. Went and had my blood work done, negative. That pregnancy did not take at all. So again, nearly 20 grand. That was a hard pill to swallow, basically down the drain. And you know, the time and the injections and the emotion put into it, the excitement that you know, hype yourself up for, but then, you know, you can't let yourself get too excited just in case it does fail. So that was IVF number 2. From there, we ended up doing some more IUIs in total anyway. In total, we ended up doing 7 IUIs. And in between that time, we did have, again, more losses. Again, I did have 5 total, the 2 at 8 weeks. And then we had 5 earlier ones that were before, you know, like between 5 and 6 weeks. So after that second IUI failed, the doctor was basically like, Kylie, I think it's your egg quality. We're looking at everything under a microscope. You know, you're producing a ton of eggs. You've always produced a ton of eggs. They always look great on ultrasound, but it's like when they're out of your body in a petri dish, they don't exceed, they don't grow, they don't make it to the next step. So basically, at that point, that's what we were looking at. That was a very, very hard pill to swallow. That might have been the toughest, because at that point, I just felt like there's no way I'm going to be able to carry my own baby. There's no way I'm ever gonna get pregnant. There's no way. At that point in my head, I was a failure as a woman. You know, women are built to, you know, to have babies and to carry those babies if they choose to, obviously. And my body was completely letting me down. The hardest part is that I had 0 control. I had done everything right. I had read books, I had taken all these vitamins, I had taken, you know, all these injections, I had been eating correctly, I'd been working out, I'd been keeping my body right, and it was failing me, and I could not do a dang thing about it. And that feeling will never go away, unfortunately. I still struggle with that. Yeah, I am pregnant right now, but those feelings of infertility, of going through it, will live with you forever. My mom, for example, it took her 6 years to have me. She still struggles, and even, you know, when I talk about my journey to her, and when she goes back and is talking about, well, yeah, when this happened, or when I did this to have you, she still cries, she still gets teary-eyed. It's just something that you'll live with forever, and you just learn to cope with it. You learn how to, you know, vent or talk it out or put those emotions to the side, but it is something that you will forever struggle with. At least most people, I'm sure. So anyways, leading us to IVF number 3. We were set to go through IVF in March when COVID happened. They basically shut down the fertility clinics and said this is not an option. So that was devastating to us. Again, we had waited years and years and years and been going through treatment for years and years. You know, some might say, oh, what's another couple months? But it sucked. It truly sucked. Going through infertility, when you are actively doing something to try to have a baby, whether it be, you know, Clomid or timed intercourse or, you know, an IUI or IVF or anything, when you are actively doing something, you genuinely feel better. Your mood is up a little bit and you just feel more positive about your situation. So when you're just kind of in the in-between stage and you're not doing anything, that is tough. It's tough. So anyway, our IVF got pushed back to July. I did start meds in June, and then we went through the whole process in July of this year, of 2020. Ironically, when I did get pregnant, Ashton wasn't even there. Granted, obviously, you know, we did IVF, so the sperm and the egg were in the petri dish. We didn't actually have to have sex in order to create this baby, but it is kind of funny looking back that Ashton was not even there when I got pregnant. He was not allowed in due to COVID, so I went that day by myself to get the little baby put in me, and I was convinced that this one was not going to work. I had convinced myself up and down that it wasn't gonna work. I cried all the way home. I cried there. I cried for days until 5 days later, I had gotten up. It was a Saturday, I believe. I had gotten up at like 4 a.m. I had to pee. And I peed on a stick, and I just in the dark went back and I laid it on our bedside table and laid there just waiting. I think I gave it like 5 minutes. Ashton was asleep, and I turned my phone light on and told him that I took the test, and it came up 2 pink lines, and I just started crying. I was so happy. I didn't think that that was gonna happen. Again, round 3 of IVF was the same as the first 2. It looked terrible. The doctor was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? This looks so bad. At that point, he told me, you know, this might be a sperm issue. Ashton's sperm looks great. You know, he's got millions. His samples are wonderful, but he's like, maybe at this point, because, you know, we're in 3 deep, and maybe at this point, when the sperm meets the egg, it is basically killing the egg. And he's like, you know, there's no way to tell, but he's like, this is just so bizarre. It's so weird that this continues to happen. So that's why I convinced myself that it wasn't gonna work. And you know, that was like a whole nother thing when the doctor had said like it could possibly be a sperm issue. That killed Ashton, you know. I had to go through the process of me finding out that my eggs could be terrible, and I had to live with that for you know, a solid year and come to terms with that, and that was extremely hard. It's like grieving something that's just not there, and then, you know, coming home and having to tell Ashton, yeah, this is what the doctor said could be a possibility of your sperm actually killing the egg. Killed me that I was going to have to tell him that, and that he was going to have to go through what I had to go through. And it hurt him. It very much hurt him. So anyway, again, surprise, we are pregnant, and we are so happy and grateful. And, you know, Ashton wanted to scream it to the world, whereas I was very reserved. Of course, people at my work had to know because I had so many appointments. I mean, I was getting ultrasounds weekly. For a while, they were monitoring me very closely, and, you know, of course my mom and, you know, best friend knew, but other than that, like, I kept it extremely quiet, and even still to this day, nobody knows. So the fact that I'm putting this out on YouTube is very nerve-wracking for me. The fact that literally anybody can watch this and find out I am pregnant is very nerve-wracking for me. And it's not that I don't want people knowing, it's just the fact that I have been trying to shield my own emotions and shield my heart. It was always harder telling people that I had a loss. If people knew I was pregnant, telling them, you know, that I had a miscarriage and repeating that same story over and over again. You know, how's the baby? And then you have to go into the story that you know, you lost it. I was avoiding that like the plague this time. I did not want anybody to know that didn't absolutely have to know, because I didn't want to have to tell the sad story over and over again. I have, again, very much been guarding my heart with the situation. But more people do know now, and I am, you know, at that halfway point. I am feeling her kick all the time. She's extremely active. We've had numerous ultrasounds. At this point, I've probably had like 8 ultrasounds. She looks great. She's healthy. She's strong. She's where she should be. So I do feel more comfortable sharing the news for sure, but I am still very guarded when it comes to it. You know, when people, I don't want to talk about it, which just kind of sounds super weird because I'm like putting this out to the public, but I don't talk about it unless somebody else brings it up for the most part. You know, when people want to see my belly and stuff, I'm just like, no. People want to touch my belly, I'm like, no. I'm still extremely private with it. Ashton and I have been pretty private people, and we are pretty private people for the most part. I am opening up and getting into a very, very huge aspect of my life here on YouTube, but we will continue to live pretty private lives because that's just us. But anyway, that is our, you know, a summary of our infertility journey. I will get in again to more things with upcoming videos, with questions, how to deal with it, how to cope. We will get into all of that with the upcoming videos. And, you know, if I forgot something in this video for whatever reason, I'll probably slide it into the next. Again, this has been an extremely long journey. A lot of it is just so fresh in my mind still to this point, but some of it almost just all blurs together because it's been the same thing over and over and over for years. And when you're so emotional about something, you're so invested, but it mentally takes a toll on you and it brings you down and puts you in a bad space mentally, you almost block out some of it. Now, whether, you know, you decide that's what you're gonna do or it's kind of out of your control, it just happens sometimes. So as far as timelines go with things, some things are a little blurry to me. So if I'm kind of goofy on that and I kind of backtrack myself on that, just disregard, because it's been tough. But Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm so excited to get into this and talk more about the infertility, because honestly, I think it's going to be healing to me as well. So hopefully it can be healing to some of you guys, and hopefully it will make you feel better and know that you are not alone. So anyways, I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys soon. Thanks.